Hello everyone and welcome to your own channel. Let's talk business once again. As always, I'm really excited to have you here. I'm also excited because today we are going to start another series which is about blockchain and what it can offer within the insurance and reinsurance space. So I'm really excited to start this new series. Now, here I know many of you are already aware about the blockchain. So let me make it very clear that we are not going to spend a lot of time discussing about what is the blockchain technology, what is consensus model, what is security cryptography, and what is distributed ledger. No, I know that you guys already aware about it. What we are trying to do is we are trying to understand a bit about this, and then we are trying to see how the blockchain overall can able to help in the insurance industry to address some of its key problems. Okay, so now if you can see properly, then blockchain can offer many use cases for different industries. Out of those, approximately 50% belongs to the financial sector. Now, if you can further zoom it down, more than 50% of the cases which related to the financial sectors are actually talking about the insurance and various problem which is within the insurance and reinsurance industry. And if you further drill it down, then you can realize that almost all the cases of blockchain within the insurance and reinsurance industry are actually talking about the better coordination, security, and low transactional cost. So, being said that, I can say I'm having a very simple definition of blockchain. So, I call blockchain is a technology of coordination. So just like insurance industry where you have multiple stakeholders, right from the insured to the insurer to the broker, and then retrocessionaire, reinsurer, surveyor, adjuster, lawyers, advisory firms, you have many different stakeholders. So in order to achieve the better coordination among this stakeholder, you need some technology which is quick, which is easy, which is cheap, which is fast, and which is secure. And in this scenario, using blockchain makes perfect sense. But when your business doesn't require so many interaction with so many stakeholders, then in that case, I don't think so. The blockchain is a viable option. Now, being said that, in this series, we are going to see some of the fundamental aspect of blockchain. As I said earlier, we are not going to spend a lot of time discussing about the consciousness model, discussing about the distributed ledger, or maybe discussing about the cryptography behind the blockchain. No, but we will spend some time definitely in order to build our fundamental ground, understanding ground on which we are trying to build the knowledge in this video presentation or in this series, right? And later point in this series we will try to correlate uh, those fundamental aspect which is distributed ledger, which is security, immutability, consensus model, etc., with insurance and various insurance use cases, right? So it is important for us to build a solid fundamental background and then gradually build a knowledge on top of it, right? So here we are, blockchain and insurance. And for those who are new to my channel, I am Ravi, and I'm having more than 15 years of experience in insurance and reinsurance space. I'm by profession business analyst and working with a multinational company right now. And if you have any query related to this video presentation or my previous video presentations, you can write me at ravi.s.sharma@hotmail.com, and you can also reach me at my LinkedIn profile. Right. By the way, I'm also running a separate series on Lloyd's of London. If you are interested to know what is Lloyd's of London, how the various process within the Lloyd's of London works, you can refer to my series. In those series, I also covered about the digital transformation, and I also covered about the impact of Brexit on London insurance market. So there are a lot of stuff there on the Lloyd's of London series. So go and check it out. So let's begin. So as I said earlier, we are going to build our fundamental ground here, and in this presentation we are going to discuss what is distributed system and decentralized system. We will talk about the centralized trust party and its various advantages and disadvantages, and decentralized system, and we are going to discuss about various advantages, disadvantages, and what are the various issue behind decentralized system. Right. So a lot to know and a lot to discuss about blockchain and insurance use cases. Okay, so before we even begin, let's have a closer look on what are the various systems available today. So when you talk about the blockchain, you always have heard about the centralized system, decentralized system, and a distributed ledger system. So let's spend some time and understand what are these systems all about. So in the centralized system, as the name suggests, the entire data is stored in one central location and one single party is having a control of the entire data. Like any RDBMS, where the data is stored in one RDBMS system and the database administrator is having the rights of the entire data. And in other hand, that in the decentralized system, you have multiple nodes within the network and each node can store and process the information separately. So next is our distributed system. Now in distributed system, no single party can decide that what the entire system will do, right? All the nodes within the distributed system is having the authority to respond in their own way, and the total aggregated response of the distributed system will be the aggregated response of the entire system. So here no single party is actually controlling the entire system. But then there is an immediate important question, why we need a decentralized or distributed ledger system. So in order to answer this question, we have to go back into the history and take some good example which we can correlate to these systems. So bank, for example, is the perfect scenario to discuss why we need decentralized system and distributed system and what bank is offering at this moment. So how bank operate? So in order for you to transact money, in order to you to send money from A to B, you need some centralized trusted party. Okay, and the role of this centralized trusted party is to establish a trust, and the trust is about when you are sending money from one account to another account, whether you have the enough money in your account, whether you are authorized to send the money to the other bank person account, and if you are sending the money to the other bank person account, then what are the ledger entries to be keep, in order to refer it in future, so that you can authorize the future transactions. So bank manages their own centralized system, and this centralized system is holding the information in a centralized ledger, and every time whenever you do a transaction, the bank will validate those transactions in this centralized ledger system, and once it is okay, it will provide you authorization to perform the transaction. Now over the period of time, banks emerges, and rather than just providing you a service of storing and transacting the money, banks started doing many other things. Banks started performing, giving you a personal loan, vehicle loan, home loan, business loan, gold loan, etc. It's all, and you can have your saving account, FD, internet banking account, customer care, and debit card, credit card, etc. So the services within the banking system emerges, and then there has to be some incentive behind managing your centralized system. So what bank do, they will take your money, they will invest your money, they will earn the investment from the money which you have kept in the bank, and in return bank also provide you some sort of incentive in the form of interest, right? And this is how the bank perform the operation. But then we have to understand some of the key challenges here in the banking system, which we will discuss soon. Moving ahead, so though banking system or centralized system can provide many services, but it they all comes with certain challenges, and then we will see about those challenges here. And I broadly classify those channel into the category of expense, time consumption, and trust. So let's talk about the expensive aspect of having a centralized system. So it's very straightforward and simple. But the major question is why the centralized system will provide you the trust, or why the centralized system will try to establish the trust between the various parties. Because centralized system wanted to earn money in terms of the transaction fees, right? And sometimes these transaction fees are quite high. There are many services which is available now which can buy or sell data. So it's kind of a data bank where you can go and buy the data, whatever the data you need, and then you can pay them the fees in order to use the data. And this sometimes this fees will go as high as 30-40% to the overall transaction. Say for example, if you want to buy a data for $1,000, so you have to pay $300 to $400 in order to receive the data. The transaction fees is really high. And the other part of having the centralized system is around the time. So sometimes the centralized system takes a lot of time in order to transact or in order to complete the transaction, because the centralized system has to address many different stakeholders within the transaction cycle. So say for example, if you want to send the money from here to US, then your bank need to coordinate with multiple intermediary to send the money into the US bank, and the entire process is taking a lot of time and expensive, right? So that is the second important part. The third important part is around the privacy and the trust. Now since you have all the thing in one place, so the centralized party who's actually owning the system is having the authority to look into the system, look into the each and every transaction what you do. Now this is sometimes challenging because we have seen certain cases where your data has been misused. For example, the classic date matching sites are more vulnerable to this kind of data theft issues if somebody is having a malicious intention with your data, right? So privacy is also an issue. So we are talking about the transaction fees, we are talking about the time, we are talking about the privacy and trust issues, and and these things are the perfect example of establishing a distributed ledger system, or we can say that the blockchain, where we will address this problem, where we will address the problem of transaction fees, we are addressing the problem of time and trust. Now let's move ahead and see how decentralized system can able to help in order to address this problem of expensive transaction fees, time consumption, and the trust. So before getting into that, let me refocus, let me bring your attention back to the decentralized system. And before the beginning of this session, in the decentralized system, you have the multiple node across the network, and the data is stored in the different node and processed by the different node, so there is no centralized system. Now then, how this decentralized system is going to help us? Say for example, in case of banking system, so bank are the centralized authority, and they are having a responsibility to make sure each and every transaction is getting authorized and validated and recorded properly, right? Let me give you an example. So for example, if you are going to deposit $1,000 in your bank account, okay, now you have to go into the bank, fill the deposit slip, and then bank will take the deposit slip and record that particular transaction into their ledger, right? In that case, bank is authorizing your transaction and then storing the transaction into the ledger, and in the process bank is also ensuring that nobody, no unauthorized person can go into the system and modify it, right? Another example of bank may be a transaction, like say for example, if you want to do a transaction and send a money to someone in US, your family member is US, then the bank will establish whether you are authorized to perform the transaction, you have enough money in your ledger or bank account to do the transaction, and what sort of fees they are going to charge. The entire thing the bank will take control. The entire process will be governed by the centralized system, and in our case it's bank, right? So the bank will ensure that the transaction what you're doing get authorized, get transacted properly, and the money from your account get debited and credited to your friend's account in US, and everything, the entire transaction will be owned by the bank, right? Now again, here we are talking about the centralized system, and then the problem will remain same. We are having expensive system, we are going to take a lot of time, and then there is a privacy issue which we have already discussed. Now another solution could be you put this entire ledger into the internet, make the ledger as an internet enabled, or make the ledger as an internet ledger, and allow all the party within the network to access this ledger, right? All the party within the network can able to see the information in the ledger, can able to do the authorization in this by looking at the ledger, and etc. Now, when you have the internet based ledger, the immediate question comes into your mind that who is going to own it. Now, in a banking transaction or in a banking scenario, bank is owning the responsibility of making sure that they own the entire piece of information. They authorize any sort of modification, they authorize any sort of transaction, and then making sure that all the transaction which is happening within the system is valid, right? But then when you talk about the decentralized system, where you have a separate node storing separate data, then the question arises who is going to own it, and who is going to authorize the modification, or maybe authorize the transaction, or maybe checking the entire piece of information which is flowing within the internet based ledger system. So there are still a lot of challenges which need to be addressed, right? So we will see how to address some of these challenges further down in our presentation. Now let's go ahead and see some of the issues in detail which is related to the decentralized system. And I divide this entire issue into three categories: security, integrity, and privacy. So the first thing is about the security. So say for example, if you are talking about the decentralized system and putting the entire information on the internet, then the first very obvious question coming to our mind is who is going to own the entire ledger system on the internet, right? And this leads to the question that who is going to modify the transaction, authorize the transaction, which we have already discussed in the previous slides. So say for example, if somebody is going to download the local copy of the internet based ledger system, modify this transaction and put it back into the internet, then in this case nobody is going to trust the internet based ledger system, because anybody can modify the system. Now this leads to another problem of integrity. Now since nobody is going to trust that the information which is there on the internet based ledger system or a decentralized system, then how to make sure that the transaction which I am going to honor, or the transaction which is going to happen, is valid? So there is integrity issues as well. And since entire thing is available on internet, the people can download the information, see the information, the privacy is also one of the major concern. So these are some of the key problem when you talk about the decentralized system. So far what we have discussed about it, the centralized system is good, but it comes with a cost. It's expensive, it's time consuming, there's a problem related to trust and privacy, because people can able to see your information, and then if somebody is having a malicious intention, they can also modify information or maybe steal your information. The decentralized system can solve some of the problem which is there in the centralized system. But then decentralized system is also having its own challenges, and the challenges is around the security, challenges is around the integrity, challenges around the trust and privacy. So then this means that we can't straight away say that okay, the decentralized system can able to help us in order to address some of the problem which centralized system is having. So what is the solution? So now in the next video presentation, we will talk about how the blockchain and the distributed ledger will come into the picture and able to solve some of the problem which is related to the centralized system or decentralized system. Now you can also observe that so far I'm giving the example of a banking industry, not yet touch the insurance industry. And why? Because banking is something which we do daily, which we transact daily. It is easy for us to understand how the banking system works. But then going forward, I will bring the insurance flavor into the discussion so that we can understand how it is getting transacted within the insurance world, right? So I hope you like this video presentation, and do let me know your views, your thoughts, and how to drive this session so that we can bring out some sort of logical shape to this series. And thanks a lot for your time. Stay blessed and have a good rest of the day. Bye bye.